Hello, welcome to Thurston Community Times. I'm your host, Ray Johnston. Thurston Community Times is an informative program dedicated to familiarizing our community with important services not everyone may be aware of. You know, oftentimes we read our conversations and tap out our responses using our fingers as opposed to our voices. Thurston County has recently made texting to 911 available in our area. Here with me today is Keith Flewelling, Executive Director of 911 Communications, known as TCOM 911. Keith, welcome.
Thank you, Ray. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Can you tell our viewers a little bit about TCOM 911?
Yeah, TCOM 911, it really fulfills three critical roles in the community. One, we answer all the 911 telephone calls and process those. Secondly, we dispatch first responders, law enforcement, fire, and emergency medical to all of those calls that are necessary. And then lastly, we manage the public safety radio system to communicate with all those first responders.
Keith, can you explain the various ways that 911 requests come into TCOM?
Sure. So first of all, we answer telephone calls. And those calls can come to us via landline telephone or cellular or even voice over internet.
Now, I understand that texting to 911 is relatively new to Washington State and Thurston County. What do we need to know about texting to 911?
Well, first of all, Ray, physically it's pretty easy. You pull out your smartphone, you put 911 in the recipient space, type your message, and send the message. But it's important to know that texting is not always the best way to request help. We always encourage people to call if you can and text if you can't. 911 telecommunicators are better able to process telephone calls where they can ask questions and get the answers quickly, and then get responders on way to your emergency as quick as possible. There are some situations, however, where texting to 911 is a better way to reach us. We have some video clips we'd like to show you examples of when texting to 911 is appropriate. Certainly the hearing and voice impaired individuals will find texting to 911 a much better way to request emergency assistance than other traditional methods.
Let's take a look at the first video clip that we have. Yes, I think we can see the value of texting to 911 for the hearing and voice impaired. What other situations may be appropriate for texting?
So it may be appropriate to text if you have a medical emergency where you're not able to speak, for example. Now the next two situations we're going to look at on videos are about personal safety, so let's take a look at those.
I was in an abusive relationship. I decided to get help, but I was afraid he would hear me calling the police. So I sent a text to 911 instead. I included my address and the reason I needed help in the text. A return text let me know the police were coming. Even when you can't speak, there's a way to get help. Text to 911 saved my life.
Well, Keith, in those situations, it's obvious that texting to 911 would be appropriate and could prevent further injuries, even save lives. Is there more we should know about texting to 911?
Sure, there are a few do's and a few don'ts that we should know about 911. First of all, do tell us the nature and the location of your emergency. Unlike telephone calls, we don't have the location of your call immediately. So when you text us, tell us the nature of the emergency and your location. That's very important on the first text. Secondly, do respond to a text from 911 even if you accidentally texted 911. It is important for us to know if you're having an emergency or not. So if you text us accidentally, we are going to try and determine if there's an emergency at your location. So do respond when we text you back. And last, do keep your messages short and to the point. And of course, you will need a data plan on your smartphone in order to text to 911.
Any don'ts?
There are a few don'ts. Don't send us photos or videos or other attachments at this time. We're simply not able to process them. Don't use abbreviations or emojis or slang. We may not understand what you mean, so keep your messages to simple English. And don't message multiple parties. We're not able to process those either. And most importantly, don't text and drive. Texting and driving is simply not safe.
Well, thank you, Keith. We've learned a lot about the 911 system. We will remember to call 911 if we're able and only text when appropriate. Call if you can, text if you can't. This has been Thurston Community Times, and we've been talking with Keith Flewelling, Executive Director of TCOM 911. I'm your host, Ray Johnston, and thank you for being with us. And join us again for another edition of Thurston Community Times.